Hello and welcome back to another episode of the First Issue Club, the weekly comic book show that talks about what? That's right, the first issues of the week. I am your co-host Greg, and with me is my dear friend Andy Vargas.
What's
Andy,
up?
how you doing? Whoa, coming in hot.
You know I got to bring that morning,
like a real morning
gotta
zoo.
bring that morning zoo energy,
Holy
baby.
shit. I was waiting for like a little alarm or cowbell or something. You came in, you were like hot dog. That's your new morning zoo name, hot dog.
It's Greg and the hot dog.
It's hot dog in the bun coming to you live on 98.9 The Slab.
Hell yes.
Hey everyone, we usually don't do that, and we never will again. It is
Until
me,
next week.
Greg and Andy, as we said earlier. Mike D is out this week and possibly next week. He is at LA Comic-Con. We are just green with jealous rage that he is traveling right now to LA Comic-Con. He will be in beautiful weather, surrounded by beautiful comic books, and I hope he gets a splinter, to be honest. I hope he has just a little tiny inconvenience because I so badly want to be him right now.
I think he is already experiencing the maximum amount of displeasure that Mike D can experience because he has to transport his treasures from Kansas City to LA and then back.
Yeah. If I know my little stressful guy like I think I do, he's very worried about his little corners of his books and whether or not they'll get dented and dinged on the commute there. So thoughts and prayers with Mike D and his collection as he travels during this hectic time.
Right. Oh, poor Mike.
There's a lot of cool artists and creators going to be there at LA Comic-Con. So hopefully he takes some videos and pictures and we'll post them over on the Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, we just got done recording a pretty unique episode of the Patreon. We did kind of like a live show where we had an audience participation during the show where we got to talk with fans of First Issue Club. And I know it's a small amount, but they were there. And so we got to talk about the 10 best-selling comic books of all time, which comic book writer has the most annoying fan base, we did a Mount Rushmore. It was really, really cool. We're really grateful that those people showed up and made the episode so much more fun. So if you want to go check that out, go to patreon.com/First Issue Club. It will be in the free section because this will be the first episode of the month. The first and last episodes of each month, you will get a free episode of First Issue Club if you join. And we have two tiers of paid membership. You have the Just a Taste tier, which is $1, and then you get full flavored, which is $4, and you get articles, videos, audio episodes, all kinds of crazy stuff. So go check it out. We have a lot of stuff there for you guys to enjoy. It's great for Christmas. If you're looking for a unique Christmas gift to give someone this year, give them a First Issue Club membership over on the Patreon. They'll love it.
We're cheaper than Disney Plus, and we don't have ads.
We're cheaper than most comic books, folks, and we talk about them, so we tell you which ones to get. So we're your go-to spot for the hot gossip on comic books and to help you spend your money wisely, we'll say. What else? Quick plug for all our social media. We're on every platform you can think of. That's it. I mean, you name it, we're on it. Today we're going to be covering, I think, 4 or 5 books on the show. Some from this week and some from last week because we didn't have a show last week for Thanksgiving. We premiered our Ed Brubaker interview, which I'm still trying to get over. It was phenomenal to talk to him for as long as we did, and he was so generous with his time, and he was really open with like his process and like what he's been through in the comic book industry. We got to talk about SoCal punk rock for a little bit, which was great for me in my world. It kind of threw me for a loop. But if you want to go check the previous episodes, it's back there. Ed Brubaker talking about his new book with Sean Phillips, Where the Body Was.
It's also on YouTube.
So it is on YouTube. Yeah, we need to start mentioning that we have more and more of our episodes are now being recorded. and so they're going to be up on YouTube. I think you just go to YouTube and type in First Issue Club, slam that subscribe button, tickle that like button, and while you're there, ring that bell. Did I do that right?
You
Is that
you
how they
did
do
it
it?
perfectly.
Bam. What do you know? Look at me, old dog learning new tricks. Before we get into comic books, some comic book news we're going to go over. Some happy, some
Sure.
sad. Um, on a personal note, we have KC TowerCon coming up here at the end of December, which we'll be covering exclusively on the show. And then in April or no, March, we'll be doing Planet Comic Con in Kansas City, where we'll be doing some special coverage of that con as well. On to the news. Avengers Incorporated has been canceled.
So dumb.
The book by Al Ewing and Leonard Kirk, which Andy, you and I both loved this book
Yeah.
so much. It was such a unique take, and like the artwork was phenomenal. Unfortunately, the penultimate issue number 5, will be debuting in December due to, according to Tom Brevoort, low
That
readership,
sucks, man.
which we're gonna have to take Tom's word for it because no comic publisher releases numbers on how our books are selling. So I wish there was some more transparency with that, but that is a battle we are still fighting.
Yeah.
So rest in peace to Avengers Incorporated.
Man,
You were loved while you were
that
here.
sucks too cuz that was such a fresh book. Like it was a superhero like Law and Order, like murder
Hmm.
mystery. So
Hmm.
good.
You know what, Andy? It just solidifies my thinking. People don't want new.
True.
With Marvel and DC, listen, we've made the tread. Stay in the goddamn tread. Don't make it fun. Make it
Put
familiar.
Batman in that book, god damn it.
Such a bummer. It's such a bummer that new and innovative writing and art isn't accepted so
Yeah,
readily within the big two
for sure.
publishers. In our humble opinion. Next up, Andy, you know more about this one than I do. I guess there's going to be a Joker Year One
Yeah.
from Chip Zdarsky writing and illustrating. Is this a solo book or is it within the Batman book he's currently
So
writing?
it's issues 142 through 144 that he's
Mm-hmm.
doing within the current Batman run. Um and it's the same team though. He's writing it, but Giuseppe Colli, whatever, the guy who
Mm-hmm.
is drawing Batman is still drawing it, and then I think Andrea Sorrentino is doing covers for that
Yes.
series.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's apparently the definitive origin of the Joker, and there is some seriously haunting uh preview art that Zdarsky
I'm
did.
looking at the cover right now. That is just
Yeah, are
unnerving.
you looking at the Secrets of Chaos?
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
it
Yeah.
is creepy as hell. But it's got me jazzed. I hope they put that out as a variant cover because that's the one to get.
Well, this is such a big deal. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like we don't really know too much about the Joker, and that's by design,
right.
really. Because the less you know about evil, the scarier it becomes.
Yeah,
And so I don't really know how much they're going to do in these 2 to 3 issues that's really going to humanize or, kind of expose any really big secrets of this character, but the fact that they're allowed and being able to explore a little bit is really kind of cool.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see how close this gets to like Killing Joke, because
Hmm.
that's, I think, historically like the quote unquote definitive Joker origin book. But even
Mhm.
that doesn't really, it leaves a lot up in the air. It's, is it in canon, is it out of canon? It's pretty wild to me to see them just like straight up calling it Joker Year Zero and having it take place within just the straight up Batman numbered
Yeah.
series. So
Yeah, the year 1 tag is very synonymous with other characters throughout DC that have been, like, really pivotal
yeah,
arcs of the characters. So, I'm expecting some pretty big things from that.
yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, and then really, honestly, that's really the big news that's been coming out lately. We are going to talk a little bit about the Spider-Man gang war stuff that's going on because I'm going to be covering the Luke Cage book, so we'll get into that later in the episode. But yeah, I mean, Andy, do you have anything else
Uh,
news wise that you wanna cover or any or
the
anything?
only thing I had was Mike D sent a text to the group in the last couple of weeks about a book of essays about Moon Knight called
Hmm.
Waxing and Waning. Um, Probably not for everybody, but I will definitely,
Big fans of the
yeah,
moon.
I will definitely be picking this up. Um, I love like intellectual conversations surrounding comic books and characters, and to have one that's specifically about my boy Mr. Knight is
Hmm.
pretty exciting for me. So
Yeah, Andy's ears always perk up when there's like extra prose stuff about his characters
yeah,
that he likes, which makes perfect sense while you're a Grant Morrison fan because you're just like the headier the better, baby.
let me read.
Yeah, I want to know the inner workings of this psycho.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to watch? This is off track. Any of the Scott Pilgrim
Oh,
stuff,
it's so
the
good,
animated
man.
series? We haven't started it yet, but it's just like sitting there waiting for me to devour,
Uh,
and I cannot
I'm
wait
like
to get into
3
that.
episodes in, and I won't spoil anything, but it's not an adaptation of the comic.
Is it a rehashing of the movie, like
No,
word
it's
for
not
word?
that either.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, then consider my interest piqued.
You are in for a treat, my friend. And I'm stoked to get it finished. And I just read a little blurb from Brian Lee O'Malley saying that with the prevalence of shows being canceled after season 1, they weren't like developing this as a multi-season thing. They just tried to
Mhm.
make it one little be its own thing, hedging their bets that this would be canceled after season 1. Um, which
I imagine it's expensive to make though with just the voice acting alone.
yeah, probably. But I love that approach. I think any movie, any show should just try and tell a story in the amount of space that you're guaranteed. Um,
Mhm.
because nothing ruins a show for me more than teeing up, something mid-season that like never pays off. I hate
Right.
that crap.
Case in point, Firefly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Firefly.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the definitive just like ultimate cliffhanger. And like we got a movie from it, but still there's so much left that they wanted to so much meat left on
Yeah.
that bone.
Or the HBO Max like Swamp Thing show. Like they
Oh, yeah.
opened
Did they get 2
one
seasons?
and they didn't
Just
even
1?
get to do all they wanted to do. It got canceled before the show was done filming.
They didn't like he didn't even get to say his signature catchphrase, which I am Swamp
Yeah,
Thing.
he didn't even get to all those that know fear burn at the touch of the Swamp Thing.
Has anyone seen my donut?
I'm glad 10K
The
is not here.
classic the classic Swamp Thing. Um yeah. Okay, well let's get into the
Let's
first
do it.
issues. I read Luke Cage Gang
Hell
War,
yeah.
which is I think the second in the Gang War series that they're doing. Which, if you're not up to speed on what is happening, basically Luke Cage is now the mayor of New York. He ousted the Kingpin, or the Kingpin just like kind of left because he was trying to be president. It's a whole thing that happened in Reign of Power.
Devil's Reign?
It was a Devil's Reign. That's what it was. And so now Luke Cage is now mayor. There is like an anti superheroes law in New York where um like superheroes slash citizens cannot interfere with criminal investigations or any kind of criminal involvement. And so what is now happening is that crime is now skyrocketing because everyone knows that superheroes can't do anything and the police force can only do so much. So all these B and D level villains are like carving up New York and like making their own territories and just kind of making it into a really unsafe place to be because they're basically going unchecked and being allowed to do whatever they want to
Right.
do. And so now we have this issue, which is by Rodney Barnes, about Luke Cage just like coming to terms with that and trying to figure out how, as a mayor and as a mayor who is supposed to uphold the law, and as Luke Cage as someone who kind of is on the other side of the law, not really a lawbreaker, but like has to do things that he shouldn't do to like protect people. So it's kind of like this, duality thing that he's trying to grapple with.
Uh, as a side note, sorry, I wanted to confirm Rodney Barnes wrote and produced The Boondocks and
Yes.
American Gods.
Hmm. One and the same.
That's incredible.
And this book, it's a great setup book because something that I didn't realize is that the gang war comic event is there's 26 tie-ins, which is way too
It's too
much.
many.
way too way too much. This thing should have been, and I'm being generous, capped at
Yeah.
15. Like what story are you going to tell in 26 tie-ins? That's
Yeah.
outrageous. That's like racketing. That's like you're just like stealing money from people now. Um, so that's where my first issue with this whole thing goes. But I like the idea of like superheroes getting creative to take down the criminal element that's growing in New York now. And like Luke Cage goes around trying to like collect new readers, or not new readers, but new heroes to help him with his cause. So he sees Cloak and Dagger, he recruits them, and he's like going around talking to other allies who support what he's doing to like kind of get reassurance that he's doing the right thing. He gets this new suit in the series to hide his identity, which is ridiculous looking. Is the goofiest thing because you look at him, you go, "That's Luke Cage with like a Zorro mask over it." Like no person in their right mind, especially like a police officer who's like trained kind of to know like pick these
Yeah.
things out, is gonna be like, "It's fucking Luke Cage." Like what the fuck?
Isn't
Like,
that
come on, man, it's
that's
the
the
mayor.
mayor?
Yeah, wasn't that the same guy that opened a Chipotle the other day? Like, what is he doing? And he looks like Shaquille O'Neal in Steel.
Sure.
Like that's the kind of like outfit that it is, and you're just like, that is just awful. That is not a good suit. And so he's like now in that garb, like by night he's this character, doesn't even give himself a name, and by day he's mayor. And so it's gonna be fun, I think, to kind of see how what teams he starts forming because Danny Rand is palling around with him. And they're really addressing the fact that Danny Rand does not have any powers now.
Right.
Like he's not the Iron Fist anymore. He's just a guy that knows
Right.
karate and other and other martial arts. Like, um, so it's gonna be. I think something's gonna happen with Danny throughout this, where I don't know if his character is gonna be like kind of put into the forefront of like how a former superhero who still wants to be good, but like his main power is like taken away, how he rises to the occasion to become a quote unquote superhero.
Sure.
So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Um, I think by the end of this, Luke Cage will not be mayor of New York anymore.
Sure.
I think he'll just kind of be like, I can't be a law abiding citizen because I need to break the rules to protect people. Um, and I think, with 26 tie-ins to get through, I think we're going to see a lot of, albeit pointless, some fun battles between supervillains and superheroes, mixing it up in the alleyways. This is very much a street level, street gang book.
Uh, the one that had my interest was the Shang-Chi 3-issue series.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So it's like this is a Defenders series without calling it a Defenders
Totally.
series.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, look forward to that. There's 26 issues. We will not be covering all of them.
It sounds like it read well though without like having to read Spider-Man and all that other stuff though, right?
No, because I mean it's the most straightforward crossover tie-in book that I think I've read in a long
Cool.
time. Of just like, oh, hold on. I'm gonna share my screen with you real
Okay.
quick. This is why YouTube is fun. This is the new outfit. Sharing. Take your time.
Oh,
Right,
yeah. Sure.
like that's
I
Steel.
love
That's Shaquille O'Neal in
his
Steel.
bald head just sticking out the top of it.
Uh, you look at that person, you go, "That's Luke
Yeah.
Cage." It's like not like just covering the nose and the sides of the face. Like that's Luke Cage. Give him a better outfit than
Yeah.
that. That is
Oh
ridiculous.
man. That's funny though. Good times.
Yeah. So, what book did you cover, Mr. Vargas?
I read a couple of things. I think this came out last week. But the I read Somna on Distillery from Becky
Hmm.
Cloonan and Tula Lote, and that is
Yep.
a spicy meatball. That is a horny ass book, buddy.
Yeah, it's kind of peddled as like this one will get you
Yeah,
hot.
and it does. It's about a woman during the like Salem witch trials.
Witch, witch
Yeah,
trials, yeah.
and she is not her she's in a kind of a loveless marriage or an emotionless marriage, and she is having dreams from this uh entity, this male entity, um who keeps drawing out her desires and telling
Hmm.
what do you want, and blah, blah, it's all the sexy stuff. um and her husband,
Equal pay as my male
yeah,
counterpart.
and her husband is the witch finder for like the town or whatever. So issue
Oh.
one, he like burns a witch at the stake, right? Like just straight out the bat.
Hmm.
um while she's having these impure dreams, whatever. And the issue ends with her seemingly having brought the entity from her dreams into like the real world, right?
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So not sure yet if she is a witch, if this is a demon, if this is a manifestation of some kind of like supernatural ability. um but it is definitely a comic for like a certain audience, like I wouldn't recommend
Mhm.
this for everybody. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's extremely well written. Um, but it's
It's kinda like a Mercandolfo, like,
yep.
there's provocative imagery, but there's also a deeper story underneath all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely. You can tell that this book is definitely going to speak very deeply to people that are in like a similar situation, or
Mhm.
anybody who's
Who are dating witch finders.
yeah, yeah, people who might be witches, who are
Who are gonna be burned at the
yeah.
stake.
Um, but I mean, yeah, well, I think as we're coming to see, a lot of these distillery books are um the kind of the deep end of comic books. There's
Mhm.
not going to be a lot of capes, not going to be a, a lot of kids
No.
stuff, um, some pretty serious
Distillery
subjects.
is very much like the thinking man's
Yeah,
publisher. Like, they're tackling more, complex ideas, little harder thinking, harder to swallow, stories than most publishers would really go after.
yeah, exactly. This is not something that I could see them having an easy time selling, even to Boom, right? Um,
No, I think this would have a hard time even on
yeah,
Image, to
for
be
sure.
honest.
Um, but it's very good if you're in the mood for like an erotic thriller, erotic horror. Check it out.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you're a fan of
Nice.
Becky and Tula, then for sure go for it.
Then you're gonna love the
For
hell out of
sure,
it.
it's a great book. So um, it was $8.99 though, which seems to be the classic. That's the price point that Distillery is at. So
Was it one and done, or is it like
oh no, it's at least going to have another
so it's
issue. I'm guessing that all these distillery books are going to be like 3 or 4 issue minis.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I think we discussed that earlier on an
yep.
episode about the longevity of those
Yep.
series.
Um on a lighter note, I read The Holy Roller. fr-
Yes, okay.
so this is from Andy Samberg and
Mhm,
the guitarist of Fallout Boy, Joe Troman, Trohman,
mhm.
and Rick Remender. So 3 writers for the price of one.
Lot of cooks in the
A lot of
kitchen
a
on
lot
this
of cooks
book.
in the kitchen. This is a 48-page debut for 3.99.
Nice. Nice.
Um, and this is it's so hard to explain. Okay, so the what it made me think of was like if you took Inglorious Bastards and
Mhm.
Rambo and
Okay.
Batman and threw it in a
Okay.
blender
Uh-huh.
and then poured it in a glass made of Kingpin, the movie. That's
Yeah.
this book.
Alright, well, all of those things are amazing, and mixed into one sounds even
Yeah.
better.
So it's about this guy whose family are like super good at bowling. And he's a Jewish kid, plays really heavily into the story, the fact that he's Jewish, and he gives up this promising bowling career to go be in Greenpeace for like 20 years, comes back to his small town and finds that it's like basically overrun with anti-Semites, bordering on like neo Nazis,
Mhm.
and is immediately he goes and visits his dad, who is dying. That's the reason he comes home, and his dad gives him his like treasured, his prized bowling ball. And as the guy's walking around his town, he gets jumped by like his childhood bully, and
Oh,
beats
nice.
shit out of the the bully and his cronies with this bowling ball.
with the
Yeah.
bowling ball.
Um, and the story is just going to jump out from there. So I foresee um, pro- probably the dad's not going to make it so much,
Right.
and our hero will, uh, you know,
Come
yeah,
unglued.
come unglued and um, go out on a mission of revenge. But
Is this a it has to be a mini,
I
right?
don't know, man. I think kind of like,
I mean, I would read 100 issues of some guy beating up neo-Nazis with a bowling
yeah.
ball. That's not a problem.
But yeah, I mean, my guess is that Andy Samberg probably doesn't have the bandwidth to like write an ongoing comic series. Um,
He doesn't need to. Just give him the rough idea.
right. But kind of like Local Man. You read the first issue of that, and
Mm,
you're like, wow, this is fucking great. I hope they keep it going forever. Um, this is kind of the same thing, right? Like, yeah, I'd read 100
mhm.
issues of this if the story and the sales are there. So I don't know. Um, I'm hoping that it goes on for, I don't know, maybe 12. If it was a maxi, I think would be great.
Is what publisher is
Image.
this? Image, yeah, okay.
It's a Giant Generator book, Rick Remender's imprint. So
Ah, okay, yeah, yep.
um yeah, a lot of fun. It's you can tell that Andy Samberg had a lot of like input with a lot of the jokes and
Mhm.
stuff. Um and you can also tell that Rick Remender had a lot to do with it. It's definitely his book. I don't know
I
much about old Tom or whatever his name is from.
I'm sorry. I think we're burying that lead. The third ingredient to this writing team is the lead guitarist from Fallout
Yeah,
Boy, who I had no idea was a
yeah,
writer, was into comics. It's like when Taboo was on or is still writing for Marvel
yeah,
Comics. You're just like, where did this come from?
yeah.
Like, it's just so odd. Like Andy Samberg makes complete sense. He's a writer. He's humorous. He's that is an easy transition to make. Like, oh, I have an idea. It probably won't be a great movie or a TV show, but like, you know, it could be a fun
Yeah.
comic. And, Rick Remender just started Giant Generator, his publishing house under Image. So he's just like, hey, I'll sit down with you if you want to help like structure this thing out. Where does the guitarist from Fallout Boy come in?
I
Where
you know
where does that thread get
I
interwoven?
went on Wiki and I found out that he grew up Jewish, um, pretty
Hmm.
heavy into it, and then kind of fell off. But he has, like, I guess, a pretty successful podcast about uh, being like a famous musician, and has
Hmm.
written a book about his experience in that career. Uh, yeah,
Really?
so I don't know, man, but uh, it works. It works really well. So
Yeah.
incredibly fun
It
book.
is. It is. The other thing that I'm like kind of like not it's like it's interesting and kind of an inspired thing of just like you don't see many Jewish superheroes or any like you know what I mean like so to have that be like in the forefront of it is like is great because like the representation there is like just phenomenal to see and like it, in mainstream comic books the Jewish people aren't really represented a ton within that superhero realm.
Yeah. Well, and the way that it's presented, um, we've seen a lot of like the whole alt right thing come up in comics, in the last couple of
Yeah,
years. But to have like an overtly Jewish character going up against those alt right people is um,
yeah.
pretty cool, pretty daring, I would say.
Well, and I think the Inglorious Bastards comp is pretty spot on of just like, you know, the oppressed destroying the oppressor revenge story is like so clutch and like just a delightful read.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if this gets like more heady than we think, because
Yeah.
there are interpretations I'm sure of this book you could make of, oh, a Jewish guy returns to his homeland to kick out
Hmm.
the infiltrators, like,
Hmm.
is that going to play a part of this book? I don't know. I don't even know if that was
Yeah.
intentional, but for the time
I
being, it is a very fun book. Pretty violent, I will say that. It's a comedy book for sure, but if you've read stuff like anything Jerry Duggan's done, it's that
Oh,
same
for sure.
vein. So
I think that's why these types of books that are kind of sneaky with their message of just like, you know, wrapping the medicine in peanut butter or cheese or whatever to kind of force down the hard
yeah,
bit are great. And I think it's a clever and unique way to tell a story. So I'm when I first saw this being solicited, I was like, I'm completely in 100% whatever the fuck this
yeah,
is.
for sure. Um, yeah, it's a fun book. It's gonna keep being fun. So, um,
Yeah.
and the last one I read was X-Men Blue Origins.
Hmm.
It's a one shot from Cy Spurrier. Uh, this is ostensibly the origin of Nightcrawler, but it more is a history of Mystique, and
Hmm.
irons out all of the weird like retcon stuff that we've gotten from her life throughout the years. Um it addresses the weird, who is Nightcrawler's father, what's the
Hmm.
deal with Mystique and Destiny, um why did Mystique abandon Nightcrawler? All that stuff gets addressed in this book.
Abandoned him. She threw him off a bridge.
I Right. Or did she?
Oh.
So, um and the thing that I will say about this too is that it's surprisingly heartfelt for especially for revolving around Mystique, right?
Hmm.
Traditionally extremely like kind of harsh, right? Like she doesn't have a lot of emotionality to her character,
Yeah.
especially for
Soft
Nightcrawler.
edges. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but it's good. I'm a Nightcrawler super fan. He's my favorite mutant, so getting this kind of definitive origin was very cool. Um, but I think anybody who's a fan of that era of mutants, the deadly origins stuff, there's a
Hmm.
ton to love here.
Good. I'll check it out. I saw that it was getting some chatter on social media yesterday when it came out about kind of how they're trying to not rework the retcons or the back history, but just like essentially just like iron out the wrinkles of just like, okay, let's make this a little more cohesive.
Yeah, and that's really what it ended up being, was Cy Spurrier just taking the pieces that we've been given, um, putting them in an order, and then kind of using Charles Xavier to glue them all together.
Hmm. Yeah,
So it
and that's easy to do with the X Men.
yeah, exactly. Um, it's really good stuff, and like I said, kind of hit me in the heart way more than I thought an origin of Nightcrawler comic book would. So really good stuff. I'd love to see more of this, to be perfectly honest. Getting some of those like definitive origins of some of the mutants that we've only been hinted at, or if their history has
Hmm.
been kind of retconned to death. uh
Hmm.
Deadpool, right? Like, feels like I've heard three different origins of Deadpool, and would love to see something like this, where it's kind of all laid out in a single continuity, moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. The problem with that though is getting everyone to agree on the
True,
background as far as editorial and
true,
creator.
very true.
But if they can do it as successfully as this Nightcrawler book, then yeah, I'm with you. I say go
Yeah.
for it. The last book I read was called Lotus Land from Boom Studios by Darcy Van Polgist and Caio Felipe. Uh, this book came out of left field for me. I was not expecting it. Wasn't really on my radar. Picked it up on a lark, and it threw me for a loop. It was so good.
I
So,
love that.
telling you now, go back to your LCS, pick up Lotus Land. It is a futuristic book about a unique type of detective that can, you know, it's not really fully explained, but he can like look into your mind by touching you and like seeing like your memories to like figure out what crime you've committed or what you're going to commit. Not like Minority Report style, but like he's imbued with some kind of ability
Okay.
that gives him a certain skill set to solve crimes in a very unique way. Who he also has a son who we find out as the story, ends, has the same markings as him. So it's alluded to that he has the same power, but the father, it mentions throughout the book, he doesn't know, the son doesn't know how to hide it or control it as well as his dad yet.
Okay.
So it's almost like kind of taking control over him or evolving into a new type of ability that like he hasn't seen yet. So it is hyper futurism meets classic noir meets like parenting woes.
Sure.
And it is written so cohesively and so like beautifully that all of it makes sense as you're reading it. You're just like, yeah, like fuck yeah, like this is the most no nonsense sci-fi futuristic crime story I've ever read, and that what was so pivotal for me when I was reading this. I was just like, I get it,
Yeah.
and not only do I get it, I want to read more stories like
Yeah.
this. So now I want to seek out more stories that are in this kind of
Sure.
genre, which is what books like Lotus Land should
Yeah.
do. It should just open the door for new readers of just like, hey, are you interested in this type of genre? Here's kind of what it is. Go check
Yeah.
it out. So Lotus Land on Boom Studios, go check it out. It was really really good, beautifully drawn. Um,
Oh,
the
it's
the
from
the
the
the last
it's
comment.
from the writer of
Go ahead.
Little Bird.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And Little Bird was awesome.
Yeah. So it it was phenomenal. And the like the last thing I'll say about it is there's flying cars in it. We have to stop that.
No more flying cars.
We're never gonna have flying cars ever. Even if this book is set in the year 2632 or something like that. We're never gonna have flying
Stop
cars.
teasing us with the flying cars.
I love the imagery of it. Scientific America did it so many years
Yeah.
ago in their magazine from 1942 or whatever. We're never gonna have flying cars. We're never gonna have personal jetpacks. The future is a lie. Okay, it's fun, but it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Stop teasing us with it. Fiction.
Seriously, I'm tired of it
Go backwards.
because all my
Go back to
life,
horse-drawn
all my
carriages in the future.
go yeah, I want fucking Flintstones cars. I want to be able to stop a car with my dirty feet. At least that's more realistic than a hover
True.
car. It just makes me so mad when I see that stuff because like,
Because you want one so
oh,
badly.
the future should be so bright, but it's just chock full of lies.
It's just chock full of lies. Isn't it always?
That's my only knock on Lotus Land. They're perpetuating the lie of flying car technology.
In a sci-fi comic.
It is sci-fi how dare they? I'm okay with the telepathy. I'm okay with the power that is cryptic that reads someone's mind. Flying cars is where I draw the line. And I'm gonna draw the line on this episode because I think we've done it.
We
Andy,
did it again.
we piloted another four-wheeled episode of First Issue Club to its destination, and that destination is the end. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back next week. Will we have Mike D? Will we not? Tune in and find out. Until then, be safe.
Bye.